Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and if you haven't heard of me, haven't seen me around the internet, or it's just been a while, I did a low buy year for 2025. I documented it for a bit near the first 2 quarters of the year, and I called it my road to minimalism journey. And throughout the year there have been many fails, many wins, and so I'm going to talk about all that stuff today. I did post a YouTube video about my low buy year about a month ago, kind of just going over some of the things that I didn't like about it, some things that I did, and some things that I had opinions on. So if you want to hear more about that kind of stuff, you can watch that video. This is going to be more of the numbers of the low buy year. So how many things I got, if I succeeded in my goals. We're going to go over all of my original goals. I do also have a YouTube video full of all of my original goals if you want to go see that. Before we get into it, I just want to say, I know you probably can't notice it, but my hair is not greasy, it's just a little bit wet. Okay, I took a shower and I was too lazy to wait for it to dry all the way because it takes forever to dry now because it is so long. So I'm gonna have the side by side 2024 versus 2025 just so you can see whether I improved. In 2025 I received 128 physical items, and that is a little bit less from 2024 when I received 133 items. In 2024, 60% of the items were new, 15% were secondhand, and 23% were gifted. And out of all of the items that I had received throughout 2024, by the end of that year, I still had 86% of them, or 115 items. In 2025, out of the 128 items, 51% were new, 14% were secondhand, 29% were gifted, and 3% were heirlooms. And out of all of the items I have received in 2025, I still have 87% of them, or 112. And I also do want to note that out of the items that I received in 2024, at the end of 2025, I only have 43%, or 58 items. I have my notes right here, so if I keep on looking down, you know why. We had a 10% decrease in new items, we had a 1% decrease in secondhand items, we had a 9% increase in gifted items. A lot of the items are on my red lights in 2025 that I was not allowed to buy. I did end up receiving some of them gifted, so there was definitely an influx of gifted items. And when it comes to the items that I still have, obviously some of them were makeup or skincare, so they were used up, but I would really like to see the percentage of the items that I still have by the end of 2026 to either be the same or just in that area, because if I still have those items, it means that I made a good purchase and it means that I bought something that lasts. So the 43% is kind of sad because that just means that I don't even have half the things that I bought in 2024. Like I mentioned, there were a few items that were makeup or skincare or products that can be used up. Out of all those kind of items that could be used up in 2024, 43 of the items that I got were those kinds of items, aka 32%, whereas in 2025, 35 of those items were items that could be used up, aka 27%. So there was a decrease in those kinds of items, but when you look at the prices, and in 2024 I spent 2,858 pesos, or $159 on items. However, and this number hurts to see, in 2025 I spent 5,316 pesos, or $295, almost $300. It is absolutely insane that I spent that much money on products that are going to be used up. Another stat is that out of all of the categories, whether it be new, secondhand, gifted, in 2024, 11 of those items, or 8%, were considered replacements of something that I already had, whether something ran out or something broke and I needed something new, or I bought something new to supplement another item. However, in 2025, 22% of those items were considered replacements, aka 29 items. I think that is a really good improvement because, one, I'm finding items that I like and items that I continue to want to have in my life that I'm willing to repurchase. And I also know that a lot of those replacements were either better quality or forever items for single-use items that I had. So I definitely replaced a lot of items in 2025 that are going to be with me for hopefully 5 to 10 years plus. All right, let's get into some goals. My biggest goal was to save money. Did I do that? Absolutely not. And you can tell by the amount of money that I spent on skincare and all that stuff. I had two really big purchases this year. One of them was a longboard and the other one was a new computer because my computer was 5 or 6 years old and it was getting tired. I wish I knew what the problem was because, again, 5 or 6 years shouldn't be the lifespan of a MacBook that expensive, but it happened and I needed to get a new one and I got a new one and I did the math on this, okay? And for my longboard and my MacBook, that took up 70% of all the money that I spent this year on items, which is insane. 2 items made up 70% of the money spent on physical items this year. I also had some goals like being more conscious, trying to transition more into eco-minimalism, the KonMari method, minimalism in general, which I think I've succeeded in all of those things. I had a serious declutter this year. Something kind of snapped, and I'll talk about this later, but I always feel guilty decluttering stuff because it's like, okay, I bought that with my money and I spent money on that and I can't confirm whether or not it's going to go to a good place or if it's just going to get discarded. So it is sad, but I also know that now I have this mindset shift. I am going to try to buy as little as possible and be really intentional with the things that I'm buying so I don't have to feel like I have to declutter as much as I did this year. I had placed a price max for every category, did not succeed in that. The only category that I didn't exceed the budget was room decor, and I did have room decor as a red light, but I got some secondhand stuff because I developed a new hobby, which is vinyl collecting, and I do listen to everything that I have, just by the way, before anyone comes at me. Another thing is that I only wanted to buy refills or replacements. I definitely did not do that, especially in the world of skincare. I said that 2026 was going to be a year of discovery when it comes to products, but I really think I started to do that near the Q4 of 2025. So there were definitely a few things that I didn't really need that weren't considered replacements, but I got anyways. And I definitely noticed that I started to abuse the replacement rule. I abused it in some ways where it made sense, like the lifetime items that I mentioned, but there were also some where I was really trying to replace some of the pieces of clothing in my wardrobe, and a lot of them were polyester, so I ended up replacing them with items with more natural fibers. So I don't know if you would like count that as a fail, but whatever. This is one of the goals that I definitely struggled with and like really failed. I was only allowed to buy 5 new items of clothing and I was only allowed to buy 6 new items across all the other categories. This was a very hopeful goal of mine. I don't know what I was thinking when I made it. I really need to understand that I am in a very developmental time of my life and I am discovering things. My life is pretty unpredictable, I could say. So having that rule was definitely unrealistic. Another goal was to continue tracking. I did track everything. Another goal of mine was to complete my project pan. I gave myself a few things to complete. It was a mix of makeup, skincare, hair care, stationery. I gave myself 48 items to use up, and out of those 48 items, I used up 34, aka 70%. Some of them were, like, looking back, I was like, okay, you were not going to be able to finish that stuff that year. You should have known that. But I am surprised that I was able to succeed as much as I did. And those 34 items that I used up doesn't even include the like 50 plus items that I used up in terms of like hygiene and like hair care, body care, all that stuff. Stuff that I was just sitting and it wasn't really doing anything in my life, and I used all of that up. Okay, now I'm going to try to rapid fire my red lights that I had given myself and whether or not I followed them. Number 1 was stationery items. I did fail this because I did get into a new hobby, which was scrapbooking. So I bought glue and watercolors. Another one of my red lights was nail polish. I succeeded. Another one was jewelry. I failed. I got offered a really good discount for some necklaces that I ended up getting. And then I also got this one. Another one was hair accessories. I succeeded. Another one was workout clothes. I succeeded. Next one was room decor. before. Like I said, I did fail because I did have to buy some stuff for my vinyl stand, but I did buy everything secondhand. Another one was physical books. I did not buy any physical books, and I didn't even buy any digital books. I borrowed all of my books this year from my Kindle app. Not Kindle app, from Libby, which is a library app. Another one was new plants. I succeeded in not buying any new plants. Another red light was bathing suits. I did not buy any bathing suits, but I did receive one. Another red light was clothing that has to be 50% or more natural fibers. I did succeed in this, except one piece of clothing that I bought and I didn't see the tag, and I assumed that it was a natural fiber, and then I found out that it was 100% rayon, but I really like the shirt. Next one is electronic accessories. I failed because I bought my MacBook. And the last one is makeup products. I didn't buy a single piece of makeup. I got 3 things gifted throughout the year, but other than that, I did not buy anything. Okay, now I want to go through some quick concluding thoughts, and then I want to talk about some of my personal goals and resolutions that I had and whether or not I succeeded in them. It will tie into the low buy stuff, I can assure you. I talked about this in my most recent video, but I technically failed, but I do have a very deep understanding and a deeper understanding of what it means to buy stuff, especially new stuff, and realizing what actually brings me joy and what makes me happy and what I actually use in my day-to-day life, as well as how long products last, and finding brands and products that stick to my morals and ethics as well. I did notice that the restrictions that I gave myself almost made me go the opposite direction. I guess I'm not really good with super strict restrictions, especially when it comes to a year-long project. I'm doing a low buy year for 2026, and I will post a video very soon after this one about that. Going to 2026, it's not really going to be a year-long project. I'm going to go quarter by quarter because it's so hard for me to predict right now what my life is going to be like in December. So going quarter by quarter and adjusting the rules to my life is going to be a lot better for me, especially because I don't want this to be just a quick challenge that I do in 2025 and 2026. I want this to be a lifestyle. I want to find a system for me that I can sustain for the rest of my life, and I want to really learn what it means to buy less and be more conscious. Finding a system that is realistic to me is definitely going to be the best way for me to be successful in this project and to be successful for the rest of my life. I also noticed that I became overly obsessed with my items and the things that I just had around me, because I don't know what it was. I became obsessed with wanting to have my things, but better, more sustainable, more eco-friendly. I kept on finding failures in my life of things that I shouldn't have bought, or things that have a better replacement. And I never had this issue before. It wasn't until I did my low buy where I started realizing all these things, and I became very overly obsessed with using up my products and finding better products. I never felt happy with the amount of things that I had and the type of things that I had, which has never happened to me, and I am scared that it is going to be a thing for a very long time. I do think a way to stop that feeling is to get off social media more. Okay, that's it for my concluding thoughts. Now I want to go through my personal goals and resolutions that I had set myself up for 2025. I had a goal to read 20 books. I read 24, which is pretty cool. I used to not be a book reader at all, so the fact that I'm reading 24 books in a year is insane. Another goal was to post 10 YouTube videos. I ended up posting 9. And I had a podcast at the beginning of the year that was a year old at the time, and I had a goal for posting a certain amount of posts throughout the year, and I ended up only posting 3 because around the end of January, I read this book called Essentialism, and it completely changed the way I viewed so many things. It's crazy how much this book changed me. So I highly recommend reading it. I realized I was doing so many things. The amount of joy and fulfillment that I was getting out of a lot of those things was not enough for the amount of effort that I was putting into them. And one of them was my podcast. So I ended up dropping my podcast, and I dropped Instagram. I eventually dropped TikTok. TikTok. And it also went into my physical items as well, truly taking a look at all the things that I have and that I'm using and realizing that for the amount of space or energy that they take up in my life, it is not worth it to have it around me. And just overall, that book made me switch a lot of my priorities throughout the year, and it is going to continue to influence me for who knows how long. And I think the biggest thing that came out of reading that book was there was a certain situation that I was in that I normally go one direction, right? And I told myself, I'm like, okay, the thing that you're going to do, it is not a priority right now. What's this direction is a priority right now. And so instead of always going this direction, always going this direction, after I read that book, I'm like, you know what? Right now, let's take a break from that direction. Let's go this direction. And that led me to meeting my boyfriend. So am I going to say that the writer, I think his name is Greg, am I going to say that Greg made me meet my boyfriend? Who knows? But that was definitely a big thing. So yeah, I highly recommend reading it. Okay, that is it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening to me. Let me know if you did a low by year and you also had goals, and if you succeeded or failed, or if you're going to try again in 2026. I'm doing another one in 2026, so please stay tuned. In the next few days, I am going to be posting that video. I'm going to just spam a ton of YouTube videos, I think, for the next few days and see where that takes me. And depending on the attention they get, I'll see whether or not I continue to update and continue to post, because that also gives me a level of accountability. Okay, I hope you had an amazing day, and I will catch you guys later. Bye-bye.